Hello, my fellow YouTubers. This is Roy back again. Today we're going to work on some wireless. Right now we're dealing with a transistor, a 1 ohm, 10 watt resistor, and we are pumping 24 volts, 0.79 to 80 amps. And there's a couple things that I want to go over with some peeps and show them the power in, power out with this. That when you put a load on it, you'll see the amperage go up from the transmitting coil. And just give me a second to get my bearings straight here, and we will go through what is what. All right. Alrighty. Let's start off with this is my transmitting coil, and I have battery jumper cable on there as a primary. So I'm just going to each end, going into my transistor, going into my resistor, and we are lighting up bulbs, okay? And first thing I want to do is show you, here's the volts and here's the amps that this is pulling. So you'll see that when I put a load near the top load, you can see that it's brighter, it gets brighter, the light, and it also pulls the amperage. You can see that goes down, comes up. So there's no free power here. This is just wireless, real high speed, frequency, and the curve on the wave is sort of like a I'm gonna say like a pitchfork. It's a pretty neat looking wavefront. Has no curvature to it. So over here, let's get rid of this light. Just stick it to the side. It's still on, but we'll stick it there. This one here that has a light bulb is just a pickup. Now, couple things I want you to see is I put my hand near it, okay? And you're gonna see the light dim. So the light's reactive. This is not hooked up to anything. Basically, it's a mirror image of this guy without a top load. So the way I was able to use this, let's scooch this on over to this table. Okay, there's nothing hooked up to it. We're going to put it over here on this table. And the way I have it hooked up is these are a lot of little LEDs in there too, with a little circuit board. So you need some power to power that. I have one end of that light hooked to the bottom of the secondary, and the other end is hooked to one end of the primary here. Now the primary is acting like a pickup because it's the bigger wire than the smaller wire, so we're reversing exactly what we're doing here. Now here, we're still running light. You can see without any load, just the top load is a load. You can see we're sitting at 0.69 to 70 of an amp, and then you go in there, you can see it go up. So let's check something here. I got a LED in my hand. I'm using. Sorry that about that. You guys back on? We connected. Anybody give me a thumbs up? So here I got a LED using this alligator clip as an antenna, and you can see that how far it goes from that sending unit. It stops right about, not coming back on at all. And we are, there we go. And we are still lit. Dimmed out a little bit right there. Okay, so we're not getting it back here, but we'll get it here. So you can see the fields expanded from that sending unit, from that top load. We're every bit of 7 feet right now. And I'm getting that's pretty good for a Slayer because there's not a lot of power going in there. We only got 24 volts. Now let's go ahead and take this as a pickup. Okay, it's hooked up to nothing. I just got a reversal of what that is over there. And let's go ahead and bring it close in proximity. Oh, I got the wire disconnected, but let's put it here. Let me connect this wire. That's the bottom of the secondary. Is the other end. It's pretty interesting. This light won't light up. It won't light up if I hook it to both of the thick wires. And it won't light up. See my hand's grounding it out. You can see it's lit, but it's just a pickup. Look how bright it gets over here. And then we can see over here, thins out. So you got a field around here, and you can see that we're using this as a pickup. So let's talk about something. Let me get this wire and get this thing put on. All right, so we're going to come over here and let's go over to this. I just have these coils set up in here, and we just showed that back here we weren't picking up anything. So I got this LED hooked up just to the top there, and all of a sudden we're expanding the field from where that first one is all the way over here. So now we're picking up electricity over here, and we're lighting up this LED this far away. Interesting thing, and I believe it has a lot to do with adding this middle coil, because this pickup coil here, because I got the load on this pickup coil, it's reacting. In fact, we should be looking at the voltage or the amperage over there. If I pull away this coil, I don't really see a drop, but I got that coil away, and now we're going to bring that coil back, and also now you can see that it peaked and then it went down. So let's see what's going on. So yeah, it's pulling amperage, more amperage. Just good things. I'm just working on some of my studies on Wilhelm Reich, and I'm adding some of Tesla's knowledge into electrostatic induction. Pretty cool stuff. So you have this field here is ricocheting off of that has a load on it. And then all the way over here, we can, of course it needs me as a body part, but there it is, picking up energy way over here. the even this coil over here, I'm sure if I touch it with an LED that it will also light up. Guess I could just grab this LED. Then we got this one here. And you can see in the air, it's lit up. I'll just like an antenna. And it's lit up over here, good distance away from the transmitter. And then it's not lit up over here, but if I probably touch the coil, look at that, you can see how the energy is getting absorbed in the iron and the copper over here. So it's lit up. We can go as far as walking all the way over to my garage here. Heck, let's give it a test run. So we are in my garage about 12 feet away. Let's walk out into my house. All right, so I got you back. So I'm outside, getting ready to walk in my garage. I lost the signal, sorry about that. I got my LED. We're gonna see if we can expand that field all the way into my house. So we're gonna come over here and we're just gonna touch something, and you can see the LEDs lighting up. So I'm touching just a piece of the outlet cover over here. This is all from a Slayer. Touching the outlet cover. I guess we could go in the house. Let me make sure there's nobody around here. Let's go ahead and, this is a good one. Let's go ahead and touch my plumbing. Faintly lighting up. Touch the receptacle. Not doing as good as it does with the big Tesla coil. But it is working out in the garage, and it's lighting up. So from a Slayer to be able to reach in my house like that is pretty interesting. And this is not a Tesla coil run, it's a Slayer. So I'm getting the distance from the Slayer, which is pretty unheard of. And you still have your pickup coil over here picking up. You still got your Slayer on. That's a power. And we also have our field. You can see the rise over there in the voltage and the amperage. And here I am with this in my hand. So I appreciate it. So let's get into something really cool. I'm working on a dual combination generator, and what I'm saying, let me get some lights on and get set up right here where you guys can have a good view. All right, so this right here is what we're building here. And these are some notes that I'm working on. And now I don't know if you guys know that I always been into Wilhelm Reich, and there's a part of this gentleman Wilhelm Reich that I'm fascinated with, is that he was dealing with organic, inorganic materials. And what I've learned in my experimenting is that when it comes to electrostatics, that the induction is done by the materials that you use. And when the materials come into play, for instance, let's bring a couple things over here. I'm just gonna bring a ferrite core. Let's bring a piece of brass, and let's bring a piece of plastic. This is glass. That's glass. And here's a piece of plastic. That one's plastic. So with the induction, how the induction works is that you would charge, say, this material. First, you touch them all to ground. And when you touch them to ground, they all balance out, okay? And then you would purposely charge one of the objects. So if you charge this object and say this is a +1 charge on it, you would bring something else that's a neutral in, and then you would bring something else with a +1 charge in that's charged, and you would put it just like that, just in proximity. What'll happen is there'll be a movement of energy. From this charge, one that's charged, say if it was positive on this side, I believe what you do is when it's charged, you're pushing the atoms in there, the molecules, to one side, and then that side becomes a positive and that becomes the negative. Or they're all still in there, but they're pushed away from the surface area of that corner. Now over here, you would have it would already be balanced, but what will happen is, if this is a positive charge, it's going to absorb the electrons over here, the negative ions. So the negative ions, when you bring this close, are going to jump out of here into here in this charged area, which will build up even more charge in this positive and negative charge. But what happens to this piece here becomes unbalanced. So basically now this side becomes negative, this side is the positive, and now you have two items or two elements here, or two materials that are charged now. Now you bring another one in, and say if you would to take this to be a negative charge, all right? So you got a positive, you got a negative. This one has emptied out its electrons into this one. This one's doubled up or has an extra electron in there, which unbalances that one. So when you bring another charged thing in the environment, all of a sudden you start to move the energy. And that's where Wilhelm Reich comes in, because Wilhelm Reich talks about organic, inorganic. So this glass or the plastic, this would be the glass, or this would be the plastic, they'd be the organic material. And this metal or anything metallic would be inorganic. And the difference would be this, is these all have charges. Everything has, we're going to say a magnetic charge, but everything has a charge, positive or negative. Whether they're diamagnetic, paramagnetic, or even magnetic, the difference is in these things here, in these pieces, you're going to have a transfer of energy. And the transfer of energy that I'm speaking about is the static induction. So since static seems to be in air and everywhere, that when these items here are unbalanced in charge because you made it like that, and say if you had another one there, it's a negative, and then all of a sudden you're going to have this negative and that negative, and they're going to be jumping over to the positive and putting another charge in a positive. But the problem is now you got three things sharing, and they're all unbalanced. So that's where you would start putting other ones in place to pick up the load and move the current. And basically when these are balanced again, they recharge from the atmosphere. And when they unbalance themselves, they're ready to, like a charge capacitor, ready to put out a load. So however you set them up. The second part to this is when you have the Wilhelm Reich organic, inorganic materials that are layered. They also the organic is just an absorption. They're always pulling in. So the organics would be similar to like a positive, where they're pulling in, and the inorganic, the metallics, do both. So basically, they would pull in, but they also repel, and they don't allow the energy to escape. So by building a box-like layered with certain elements, and what we're going to do is use the periodic table up there, and we're going to pick through the elements I have in my garage. And what we're going to do is we're going to layer them. And we're going to build two different machines. So this would be on one side, which would be my electromagnetic wave machine, which is power in, power out. There is no free energy, but you don't have moving parts. So that's the special part of this. And this is more of really controlling the power by build by design, okay? Now, on the Wilhelm Reich machine that I want to build, there's no plans, there's no nothing. There's just books I read a long time ago that I can't get anymore for some reason, but he did use the layered material, organic and inorganic material, and he did run a generator or electric motor. I think that's better to say it, electric motor. So there's potential there, and that is to me would be over Unity, because there's no power in except for the materials itself, and the materials itself have transfer of energy, but you have to set them up in a certain way to where you allow the energy to move through like a current, and you build up a pressure. And one thing good about the inorganic materials, by building, say if you built a box, so you would layer the outside with wood or wool or something, and then you would do the next layer in, say, steel. And then you do the next layer in, say, glass or some kind of dielectric. And then you do the next layer in, say, copper. Now, what happens is the energy is drawn in from the absorbing organic, and then it hits also the metallic, and then the inorganic, and then when it hits that, it's sucked in, but it's sucked in so much that it gets sucked in again through the next layer of organic, but it never can make its way back out. So on the inside of the box that you build or something, that it would build a pressure. And that's how, by using materials, meaning different metals and different dielectrics, I'll call them, you're able to cause this directional flow of electrons from the atmosphere into the box. And let's just say I build it in a pyramid shape, because you want to drive everything down to the center core, and the center core is what you tap in on one leg. So it'll be it'll be where the charge, negative charge, comes out. And obviously a pyramid has something to do with this, because it would be built in that premise to where it's built on where it's connected to ground. So you have a ground apparatus about it, to where the ground is reacting to the movement of the pieces. Pretty much it. So that's it in a nutshell. But one more thing I'm going to read off from some of my notes here that I wrote here. And maybe this will give you an understanding where I'm coming from. And I put sound waves and vibrations made by electrical pulses, or capacitors with capacitors. A tuning fork, vibrations. And I just wrote a note, and on the note, I put our sun. And I put oscillate the elements. So basically what I was just talking about was the periodic table, using different elements, and then oscillating the elements to get the energy. and that's what we're going to be pulling the energy through. Now, I wrote this as just notes for myself, and I wrote these back in, um, let me see, the note says 8/21/17, so almost a year ago. And I wrote, the sea of movement. To a reference of ether is a movement of energy constantly on the go, able to change direction instantly. It does not possess any centrifugal force, and because it wouldn't be able to instantly change its direction. So that's the ether. Now, when I say ether, which would be the natural medium, also what we have is outer space and we have our space. And outer space is the same thing, but it's vacuum. And the difference between that space and our space, we still have ether here, but we are under a positive vacuum instead of a negative vacuum. And there's something to say, we'll get into that later on, but there's something to say about our environment, how things react. So basically, we're vibrating all the elements that are above ground surface. Inside the ground surface is being vibrated, but it's being vibrated through the Schumann resonance or such like lightning strikes to the earth, which are happening all the time. So the ground's being vibrated as well. The electromagnetic waves ranging from infrared to ultraviolet are visible light and visible light, which is between the IR and the UV in the electromagnetic spectrum. So these are kind of good notes that I wrote myself. Although space is not perfect vacuum, as it is really composed of low density particles. So we're going to call them super low density particles. And this is the key words here, because the super low density particles in space slow down the radiation coming out from the sun and the ultraviolet and the electromagnetic spectrum. The cool part about this is ether, you have to almost understand to deal with if you're doing wireless or things electromagnetic. And I wrote this as a note. This is a good note I'm going to give out to you guys. It says fusion in the core of the sun gives off high gamma rays. However, as gamma rays, photons make their arduous journey to the surface of the sun, they are continuously absorbed by the solar plasma and re-emitted to lower frequencies. By the time they get to the surface, their frequencies are mostly only within the IR visible light UV spectrum, which is really, really good. So we're mainly dealing with that. When electromagnetic radiation from the sun strikes the Earth's atmosphere, some of it is absorbed while the rest proceed to the Earth's surface. In particular, UV is absorbed by the ozone layer and re-emitted as heat. Some of the heat is radiated to outer space, while some is sent to the Earth's surface. And this was the important thing that got me into a lot of these studies I've been doing recently, is sound waves. And it says sound waves are traveling vibrations of particles in a media, such as air, water, or metal. So it stands to reason that they cannot travel through empty space where there are no atoms or molecules to vibrate. So, yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. But then I started thinking about it. I started doing more research, and I realized that crystals in space, in vacuum, are able to vibrate and cause a vibration in atoms in space if you had a crystal. And this is what I need to read you. Sound waves are able to leap across the vacuum, separating two objects made of piezoelectric crystals. These crystals generate an electric field when squeezed or stretched by sound waves or other forces and to form an electric field. And this is where Ed Lee Scallan's cones come in. This is where Ed Lee Scallan's levitation comes in. And this is where Ed Lee Scallan's able to talk to the stones through sound, certain sound waves, to where he can vibrate the atoms inside the stone and be able to do as he pleases with the stones. Just wanted to share some of these exciting. I have great journals. It's been almost 6 years now. And this is awesome because this is exciting, but the main part is the Wilhelm Reich machine as well. Leave your comments. Peace out, my brothers.